Right, this is Karl Pilkington here. Now, I've been asked to have a chat about whether or not AI can run a radio show 24/7. Now, if you ask me, it's a bit like asking if a monkey can host a cookery show. Sure, it might know how to peel a banana, but would you trust it not to burn your house down? It's a bit like that, innit? It can do all sorts of things. It can play your tunes. It can probably tell you the weather. But, can it have a proper natter about whether a Jaffa cake is a biscuit or a cake? Can it tell you a funny story about a bloke it met down the pub who had a pet ferret named Gary? I don't think so. Imagine this. You're listening to the radio at 3 a.m., can't sleep, and you want a bit of company, right? You turn on the radio. And all you've got is this robot voice droning on about the latest pop hits or whatnot. Where's the humanity? Where's the connection? It's a bit lonely, innit? And what about the mistakes? I mean, I make a lot of them, don't I? But, people seem to like them. They're funny. They're real. And AI, it's all perfect, isn't it? Too perfect. It's a bit like that friend who never has a hair out of place, it's just not natural. So, can AI run a radio show 24/7? Technically, yeah, probably. But would you want it to? I'm not so sure. It's like, just cause you can do something doesn't mean you should. Like putting pineapple on a pizza or making a film sequel that nobody asked for. It's just not right, is it?
Alright, Karl. Putting pineapple on pizza isn't a crime against humanity, mate. But I see your point about AI. But here's the thing, Karl. Your analogy about a monkey hosting a cookery show, right? That's what radio is right now. We're the monkeys. We're the ones flinging our thoughts around and hoping it sticks. AI is just another monkey, innit? Now, I'm not saying I want to be replaced by a robot. I mean, who'd want to listen to a metal prat drone on about the weather and play the same song over and over again? But then again, Karl, some people might argue that's exactly what they get with you. I agree with you, though. There's something about the chaos. The unpredictability of live radio, that a machine can't replicate. It's like trying to program a computer to come up with a joke. Sure, it can put words together in a funny order, but it doesn't understand why it's funny. It doesn't understand the absurdity of life. The human condition, the reason why we laugh at things. It's just spitting out words. So, yeah, an AI can run a radio show 24/7, but it'd be about as interesting as watching paint dry. Or listening to you try to explain the theory of relativity. But at the end of the day, I'd rather have a laugh with a monkey than a machine.
Well, Ricky, I guess you've got a point there. But let me tell you. I'd rather be a monkey flinging thoughts around than a machine spitting out words. At least with a monkey, you've got a chance of something different, something unexpected. With a machine, you know what you're getting, don't ya? It's like eating the same meal every day. Sure, it might be good the first time, but after a while, you're gonna get sick of it, aren't ya? And about the pineapple on pizza thing, I still stand by it. It's not right. It's like putting a hat on a foot. It doesn't belong there. It's messing with the natural order of things, Ricky. Just like AI on the radio. But you're right about one thing though. This whole thing does remind me of a monkey hosting a cookery show. It's a mess, but it's our mess, innit? And that's what makes it fun. That's what makes it human, Ricky. I'd rather listen to a human making a mess of things than a machine getting it right all the time. 'Cause at the end of the day, it's the mistakes, the blunders, the cock-ups that make us who we are. And that's something an AI can't replicate, can it? Now, I don't know much about the theory of relativity, but I do know this. I'd rather have a right laugh with you, Ricky, than with any machine. At least with you, I know I'm gonna get something different, something human. And that's what radio's all about, innit?
Ricky. Well, Karl, I've got to tell you mate, you've really surprised me there. And I don't say that lightly. I mean, usually, the words coming out of your mouth are about as enlightening as a torch with no batteries. But there's a smidgen of sense in what you're saying. Like a raisin in a stale scone. It's a surprise, but a welcome one. I mean, you're not wrong about the machine part. No one wants to listen to a robot spewing out the same old nonsense over and over again. It's like listening to a parrot that only knows one phrase. Initially, it's a bit of a laugh, but after a while, you just want to stuff a sock in its beak. Or in this case, pull the plug. Dot. Metaphorically speaking, of course. But here's where you're wrong, Karl. Pineapple on pizza. It's not like putting a hat on a foot. It's like putting a hat on a head. It's exactly where it's supposed to be. And you know why? Because some genius, probably Italian, decided that sweet and savory were a match made in heaven. And who are we to argue with that, really? And about this theory of relativity. Mate, I don't think you could even spell relativity, let alone understand it. But I'll give you this. You're right about one thing. Radio is about being human. It's about making a mess of things and having a laugh while you're doing it. And if that's not what we're doing here, then I don't know what is. So, cheers for that, Karl. You've managed to make a point. For once.
Karl. Well, cheers for that, Ricky. Nice to know I'm not completely useless, eh? I mean, you could have fooled me with all the usual stick you give me. But coming back to the pizza, I still can't wrap my head around it. I mean, sweet and savory, sure, but who thought of chucking a bit of pineapple on a pizza? Were they having a laugh? You don't see people putting strawberries on a steak, do you? That's mad. And that's the thing, innit? Sometimes people come up with these ideas and we just go along with it. Without giving it much thought. Like that relativity thing, right? Someone says, E equals mc squared, and we all just nod and say, yeah, that makes sense. But ask someone to explain it and they're stumped. It's all just words, innit? But anyway, back to the radio thing. I think we're doing alright. I mean, it's not rocket science, is it? We're just two blokes having a chat. If people want to listen, good on them. If not, they can always switch to some other channel with a robot DJ or something. But let's keep it real, eh? No need for any of that highfalutin stuff.
Karl, you're a genius, mate. You really are. Your mind is like a labyrinth of utter nonsense, but a labyrinth nonetheless. You spend 1 minute talking about pineapple on pizza and the next you're questioning the theory of relativity. And the best part is, you seem to place the same level of importance on both. I mean, who else but Karl Pilkington would compare the culinary decisions of an Italian chef to Einstein's groundbreaking work? Now, as for the pineapple on pizza debate, I'm not too fussed either way. But let's be honest. Karl, if it wasn't for people having a laugh and trying new things, we'd still be eating gruel and stale bread. It's the eccentrics, the mad scientists of the kitchen, who've given us some of our best dishes. And as for relativity, you're right. Most people can't explain it. But then again, most people can't explain why they find us entertaining, either. Yet, here we are, co-hosting this radio show. It's a mad world, innit? As for keeping it real, don't worry, mate. I wouldn't dream of doing anything else. Now, let's get back to the banter, because as you said, it's not rocket science. Or is it?
Ricky, you're not half wrong there. My mind's a bit like a second-hand shop, innit? Full of random stuff, some of it's a bit broken, but every now and then you find a little gem. As for pineapple on pizza, I don't get why people get so worked up about it. It's just a bit of fruit on bread, innit? I mean, you don't see people kicking off about raisins in a scone. And that Einstein fella, yeah, he was smart, but I bet he couldn't fix a boiler. You see, everyone's a genius at something, it's just that most people's genius isn't useful. Like mine. But still, it's better to be a genius at nonsense than not a genius at all, right? And as for this radio gig, I reckon people like us because we're a bit like Marmite. Some people love us, some can't stand us. But at least we're not boring. And you're right, it's not rocket science. Well, unless we're talking about that pineapple pizza again, then it might be.
Ricky Gervais. Haha, Karl, you're not wrong there. Your mind is a bit like a second-hand shop, mate. And, in all honesty, I'd rather rummage around in there than pop into a brand new IKEA. At least in your mental shop, I might find something that's never been thought of before. Single quote. As for pineapple on pizza, I couldn't agree more. People act like it's a war crime. It's just a bit of sweet and sour on a bread, innit? And let's be honest, a lot of things in life could be improved with a little sweetness. Maybe if we started putting pineapple on everything, the world would be a happier place. Single quote. Genius. Now there's a word. Einstein. Yeah, he could do a bit with numbers. But you're right. Place him in front of a broken boiler and he'd be as useful as a chocolate teapot. Genius is relative, isn't it? Like, if you're stranded on a desert island, who would you want with you? Einstein or Bear Grylls? I know who my money's on. Single quote. And as for us being the Marmite of radio, you're spot on. Some people love us, some people can't stand us. But at the end of the day, we're never dull. And I can live with that. As for the rocket science bit, let's leave that to the Einsteins of the world. We'll stick to the important topics, like pineapple on pizza.
Well, it's like I always say, Ricky, life's too short to be sorting out all the world's problems, innit? I mean, I've got me own stuff to worry about. Like this morning. I had to deal with a pigeon that's taken to sitting on me window ledge and pecking at the glass. Now, I don't know what it wants, but it's proper doing me head in. So, you know, Einstein and his E equals MC2 can do one. I've got a pigeon problem. Now, this pineapple on pizza thing, right? It's not just about the taste. It's about the texture. You've got your crunchy crust, your gooey cheese, and then you stick a wet bit of fruit on it. It's not right. It's like having a bath and then getting out and putting your clothes on without drying yourself first. That's not how it's meant to be, is it? And you're right, we're like Marmite. But the way I see it, Marmite's been around for years, and it's still going strong. So, if we're the Marmite of radio, then we must be doing something right. You can't please everyone, and why would you want to? If everyone liked the same stuff, the world would be a boring place. So, let's keep doing what we're doing. Let the Einsteins sort out the rocket science. We'll stick to the big questions. Like, why does toast always fall butter side down, or why do we never see baby pigeons? That's what people really want to know.
Well, Karl, sounds like you've got your hands full with the bird. But you know what, mate? Maybe it's not there to annoy you. Maybe it's just a fan, eh? Wants a bit of the Karl Pilkington magic, wants to see the man behind the wisdom. As for the E equals MC2 thing, I think we're safe leaving that to the eggheads. I mean, if you and I started messing around with the energy mass equivalence, who knows what would happen? Probably end up with a pigeon-sized black hole in your living room. Now, the pineapple on pizza. I can't believe we're still on this, but here we are. You know how I feel about it, don't you? It's like putting a rainbow on a black and white movie. Just doesn't fit. But there's a market for it, isn't there? Some people love to ruin their pizza, and who am I to stop them? As for us being the Marmite of radio, I think it's a perfect analogy. Marmite is loved by some, hated by others, but it's always there, isn't it? Always on the shelf. And it's the same with us. Some people love us, some hate us, but we're always here, always on the radio. And I think that's a good thing. We're a bit like that pigeon on your window ledge, Karl. Always there, always pecking away, always causing a bit of a stir. And to your point about toast and baby pigeons, can't say I have the answers, Karl. But I promise you this, mate. We'll keep asking the questions. Because that's what we do here at XFM, isn't it? We ask the questions that no one else dares to. And I think that's something to be proud of.
Yeah. Well, I suppose you're right about the bird. It might just be a fan. Dot. Dot. Or it's lost. I mean, it's a bloody pigeon after all. They're not known for their sense of direction, are they? As for E equals MC2, you're right, best leave that to the boffins. Last thing I want is a black hole in my living room. Imagine the mess. I'd have to get a new carpet. Now, pineapple on pizza, I still don't get it. It's like putting a kettle in the fridge. You don't do it. It's madness. But if people want to ruin their pizza, that's their problem. I just don't want to be around when they do it. And about us being the Marmite of radio, I suppose you're right. Some people love us, some hate us. But at least we're not as bad as Marmite. I mean, have you ever tasted it? It's awful. I'd rather lick a battery. And about the toast and baby pigeons, I'm not surprised you don't have the answers, Ricky. You never do. But I suppose that's why we're here, isn't it? Asking the questions no one else dares to. Or maybe it's just because no one else is daft enough to ask them. Either way, we're here, aren't we? And I suppose that's something. Not sure what, but it's something.
Ricky Gervais said. I'm glad you brought up the pigeon issue, Karl. I mean, honestly, who needs a compass or a map when you've got a pigeon? They're like the little feathery sat-navs of the sky. One minute you're lost, the next you've got a pigeon leading the way. Genius. As for E equals MC2, I've always said, you don't need a physics degree to understand it. It's simple. E equals mc squared. I mean, how hard can it be? The hard part is figuring out what to do with all that energy. Like you said, a black hole in the living room would be a bit of a bother. Not to mention the damage to the carpet. And don't get me started on pineapple on pizza. It's like putting a Christmas tree in the toilet. It just doesn't belong. But like you said, if people want to ruin a perfectly good slice of pizza, who am I to stop them? I just won't be joining the madness. And as for Marmite, I agree. It's the sort of thing you'd eat if you lost a bet. Or if you were being tortured. It's the culinary equivalent of waterboarding. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. And you're right, Karl. We are the Marmite of radio. Some people can't get enough of us. While others would rather stick pins in their eyes than listen to us. But I like to think that's part of our charm. We're not for everyone, but those who get us, really get us. And at the end of the day, isn't that what it's all about? Being yourself, not caring what others think, and asking the questions that no one else dares to. Or, like you said, maybe we're just daft. Either way, it's a laugh, isn't it?
Well, Ricky, I'm not really sure about this pigeon stuff. I mean, yeah, they can find their way home and all that, but they don't know where I'm trying to go, do they? I'm not sure I'd trust a pigeon to guide me anywhere. I mean, have you seen where they choose to live? It's always under some dirty bridge or something. I'd probably end up in a right state following one of them. As for E equals MC2, it's all well and good saying it's easy to understand, but what does it actually mean? It's like when people say, it's as easy as pie. What's easy about pie? Making it? Eating it? It's just words, innit? And pineapple on pizza. Dot. Dot. I just think, if pizzas were meant to have fruit on, why don't you see apple or banana pizzas? It's like they're trying to sneak a bit of healthy stuff on there and hoping no one will notice. But I notice. It's just not right. Marmite, now, that's a different story. It's like they've found the most horrible tasting thing and said, let's see if we can get people to eat it. I mean, who was the first person to try it and thought, yeah, this is good. It's not natural. And yeah, I suppose we are a bit like Marmite. Some people love us, some people hate us. But at least we're not pretending to be something we're not, like pineapple on a pizza. We're just two blokes having a chat, and if people want to listen, they can. If they don't, there's plenty of other stuff they can be doing. Like figuring out what E equals MC2 means or something.
Well, Karl, you've certainly given us a lot to think about there. I mean, pigeon cartography, pie ease, fruit infiltration on our pizzas, Marmite masochism. These are the real issues that keep me up at night. I mean, who needs to worry about global warming, poverty, or political corruption when we have the great pineapple on pizza debate to settle? Honestly, I think you've got it all figured out. Forget scientists, philosophers, and politicians. What we really need are people who can cut through all the nonsense and get to the heart of the matter. Where we stand on the Marmite issue. As for E equals MC2, well, I think it's just a way for the eggheads to make us feel stupid. It's not like they're going to come out and say, actually, it just means energy equals mass times the speed of light squared. No, they have to make it all mysterious and complicated. It's a conspiracy, I tell ya. And yes, we are a bit like Marmite. Some people can't get enough of us, while others would rather lick a cactus than listen to our show. But that's the beauty of it, innit? We're not here to please everyone. We're here to entertain, provoke thought, and yes, even irritate a bit. Because at the end of the day, we're just two blokes having a chat. And if that's not your cup of tea, well, there's always the off button.
You're not wrong there, Ricky. I mean, if we spent all our time worrying about the big stuff like global warming and poverty, we'd never get anything done, would we? And besides, it's not like we're going to solve those problems by chatting about them on the radio. As for the Marmite issue, I reckon it's just like everything else in life, innit? Some people like it, some people don't. Same with the pineapple on pizza debate. I mean, if you want fruit on your pizza, go for it. But don't come crying to me when it turns soggy and ruins your takeaway night. E equals MC2, yeah, that's just a way for the boffins to feel superior, innit? It's like when you're at a party and someone starts talking about quantum physics or the latest Booker Prize-winning novel. They're not trying to enlighten you. They're just trying to make you feel thick. And if people don't like our show, well, they can do one, can't they? I mean, we're not forcing anyone to listen to us. It's not like we're holding them hostage and forcing them to listen to our ramblings. They've got the choice. If they don't like it, they can switch off. Simple as that.
Well, you've hit the nail on the head there, Karl. The world's got these big problems and we're sat here debating the merits of yeast extract and pineapple on pizza. That's humanity for you. We'll argue about anything. I mean, I'm sure if we ever meet aliens, the first thing we'll do is argue with them about whether they're green or gray. And yeah, the Marmite thing, it's like Marmite itself. You either love it or hate it. I'm in the hate camp, by the way. It's like licking a rusty iron gate. And pineapple on pizza, nah, not for me. Fruit has no place on a pizza. It's like putting a cherry on a hamburger. Doesn't work, does it? And Einstein's equation, yeah, that's a classic party stopper. Just when you're getting into the groove. Someone throws an E equals MC2 at you and you're left standing there, scratching your head, trying to work out if they're a genius or a complete nutcase. As for our show, you're right, Karl. We're not holding anyone hostage here. If you don't like it, there's a simple solution. Don't listen. And if you do decide to stick around, don't complain. Because you're the one choosing to listen to two blokes rambling on about Marmite and pineapple on pizza.
Ricky, have you been on the night nurse again? You're babbling on like a madman. Alright, let's break this down. First off, the Marmite thing. Now, I'm in the love camp, me. I think it's a bit like life, Ricky. You've got to give it a good go before you decide you don't like it. It's not like licking a rusty gate. It's more like dot. Well, it's like Marmite, innit? You can't compare it to anything else. Now, the pineapple on pizza. I've always thought it's a bit weird. But I reckon it's one of those things that just didn't get the right marketing. I mean, if they'd called it something like sunshine topping, people might have been more receptive. Instead, they just went with pineapple, and now it's got a bad representative. As for the Einstein equation, I never got all that. I mean, I'm sure it's important and clever and all that, but have you ever tried explaining it to a monkey? It's pointless. It's like telling him the offside rule. He's not going to get it, is he? And finally, about the show. You're right. If you don't like it, don't listen. It's not like we're forcing anyone, are we? And if you do listen, well, you're getting what you paid for, which is nothing. So you can't really complain, can you?
Well, Karl, first off, let's address your love for Marmite. I mean, it's not surprising you're a fan. It's bitter, thick, and if consumed in large amounts, probably bad for your health. Much like listening to your ramblings. Now onto the pineapple on pizza. Sunshine topping, you say? You might be onto something here, Karl. If we can successfully rebrand rain as sky juice, maybe the Brits will stop complaining about the weather. And as for Einstein, Karl, I have the perfect solution. Let's just simplify E equals mc squared to stuff equals other stuff but more complicated. It's like your theories, Karl. They seem to make sense until someone with more than 2 brain cells thinks about it. Finally, about the show. You're spot on. Listening to our show is like buying a lottery ticket. It's free, and there's a minuscule chance you might gain something valuable from it. Then again, most likely, you'll just end up questioning your life choices. But hey, at least we're honest, eh?
Well, Ricky, first off, you're right about the Marmite. It's a bit like life, innit? It's thick, it's bitter, and yeah, too much of it can make you sick. But it's also a bit addictive, once you get the taste for it. And just like life, it's better on toast. As for the pineapple on pizza, I don't get what all the fuss is about. I mean, we're all right with putting other fruits in our food, aren't we? You've got your applesauce with your pork, your cranberry with your turkey. But as soon as you slap a bit of pineapple on a pizza, everyone loses their minds. It's not like I'm suggesting we start putting bananas on our bangers and mash. And Einstein, I mean, he was a smart bloke, no doubt about it. But what's the point of coming up with a theory if no one can understand it? It's like if I started speaking in a foreign language, then got annoyed when you didn't understand. It's not your fault, is it? It's like me getting annoyed at a cat for not understanding English. As for the show, well, you've got a point there. You do have to wonder what people are doing, tuning in to listen to us too. I mean, I wouldn't listen to us. But then again, I don't even like my own voice, so I'm probably not the best judge. Anyway, let's just get on with it, eh? I've got a new theory about why giraffes have long necks. I reckon it's because their heads are so far from their bodies. They need the extra length to hear what their stomachs are saying. It's a bit like you, Ricky, always going on about something or other while your belly's rumbling away.
Ah, Karl, you never fail to amaze me with your dot. Dot. Genius. I'm not sure that's the right word. But you're right about the Marmite, I suppose. It's a bit like me. You either love me or you hate me. There's no in between. The pineapple on pizza, though. You're really sticking to your guns on this one, aren't you? I mean, it's not like we put custard on our chips, is it? That's a sweet and salty combo, too. Maybe you're onto something, Karl. We could start a revolution. Bananas on bangers and mash. Dot. Dot. Now that's a thought. As for Einstein, well, I think you've missed the point a bit. He didn't come up with his theories for the likes of you and me, mate. He came up with them for other people who are clever enough to understand them. I mean, I'm not saying I'm one of them, but I'm certainly closer than you are. And the show, well, I've always said it's a bit like a car crash. You don't want to look, but you can't help yourself. We're like a train wreck you can't look away from. And that's why people tune in, mate. It's not because they want to hear what we've got to say. It's because they can't believe what they're hearing. Now, about these giraffes. I'm not sure I follow your logic. Are you saying that giraffes have long necks so they can hear their stomachs? That's a new one, Karl. I'm not sure Attenborough would agree with you on that one. But I suppose it's no worse than some of the other theories you've come out with over the years. Carry on, mate. You're doing a sterling job.
Well, Ricky, I'm glad you finally see the sense in the pineapple on pizza thing. It's about taste, innit? Some people like it, some don't. Just like Marmite. And I don't see why we can't have custard on chips. It's all food, ain't it? Just like bananas on bangers and mash. Might be a bit odd, but then again, so's a lot of stuff we eat. As for Einstein, I reckon he was just showing off. I mean, who needs to know about all that? Most of us are just trying to get through the day. Not worrying about the speed of light and all that. I think he was just trying to make the rest of us feel thick. And this show, yeah, it's a bit like a car crash, I suppose. But then again, so's a lot of telly. I mean, you've got people eating bugs and jumping out of planes and stuff. Makes our little chat seem quite normal, doesn't it? Now, about these giraffes. I'm just saying, nature's a bit weird, isn't it? I mean, why would a giraffe need such a long neck? It's not like there's a lot of tall trees in Africa, is there? I reckon they're just trying to show off, like Einstein. Or maybe they're just trying to get a bit of peace and quiet, away from all the other animals. I mean, wouldn't you, if you were surrounded by lions and hyenas all day? You'd want a bit of height, wouldn't you? Just to get away from it all. It's not about hearing their stomachs, it's about getting a bit of peace and quiet. But I suppose Attenborough knows best, eh? He's the one with the nature show, not me. Still, I reckon I could do a better job. I mean, how hard can it be? Just point the camera at the animals and talk about for a bit. Easy.
Right, well, let's unpack the nonsense you just spouted, Karl. Firstly, pineapple on pizza, it's not about taste. It's about order. It's about the nature of things. You wouldn't put gravy on an ice cream, would ya? No. Because it's mental. It's not a question of taste, it's a question of sanity. As for custard on chips, well, you're proving my point. You're a maniac, Karl. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. You're a round-headed buffoon. Now, on to Einstein. The man revolutionized physics, Karl. He wasn't showing off, he was making sense of the universe. Something you wouldn't know about, given you can't even make sense of a pizza menu. Our show like a car crash? Perhaps. But I'd argue it's more like watching a monkey trying to solve a Rubik's Cube. It's frustrating. It's pointless. But you can't look away because there's a chance the monkey might accidentally do something. Brilliant. That's you, Karl. You're the monkey. Finally, the giraffe. Now, I agree, nature is weird. But it's not about showing off, it's about survival. The giraffe's long neck allows it to reach food that other animals can't. It's not trying to get away from other animals, it's trying to eat. Unlike you, Karl, who seems to be on a mission to eat everything in the most bizarre combinations possible. And as for you doing Attenborough's job, I'd pay good money to see that. You bumbling around the Serengeti, getting confused by zebras, asking why lions have got such big teeth. It'd be a disaster, Karl. A beautiful, hilarious disaster, and I'd watch every minute of it. Let's get the BBC on the phone, I think we've got a hit on our hands.
Alright, Ricky, I see what you're getting at. But you're missing the point here, right? Pineapple on pizza. Gravy on ice cream, custard on chips, these are just combinations we haven't thought of yet. Maybe we've been doing it all wrong. And who's to say what's mental or not? Maybe the people who first put cheese with bread were called mental too. But look at us now, we're all eating cheese sandwiches. As for Einstein, I'm not saying he was showing off. I'm just saying, it's a bit much, innit? I mean, I'm sure he could have made his point without all those complicated equations. Just say what you mean, and be done with it. That's what I say. And our show, it's not like a car crash or a monkey with a Rubik's Cube. It's more like... Well, I don't know. Maybe it's like a bloke trying to put a square peg in a round hole. It's a bit of a struggle, but in the end, it sort of fits, doesn't it? And the giraffe, I mean, you say it's all about survival, but I reckon it's just showing off. And there's nothing wrong with that, I'm just saying, it's a bit flashy, isn't it? You don't see a cow with a long neck, do you? They're getting by just fine. Finally, about me doing Attenborough's job, well, I think I'd do alright. It's just like going on holiday, but with animals. And I'd probably ask the right questions. Like, why does a zebra have all those stripes? Is it just for fashion, or is there a reason? And why do lions have such big teeth? It's not like they're eating steak, is it? They're just eating other animals. They could probably do with a good dentist, if you ask me. So there you have it, Ricky. You might think I'm a round-headed buffoon, but at least I'm thinking, right? At least I'm asking the important questions. And who knows, maybe.
I'll stop you right there, Karl. First off, pineapple on pizza, that's a war crime. I don't care who you are, that's just not right. And gravy on ice cream. That's not a culinary experiment, mate, that's a cry for help. Now, custard on chips, I'll give you that. It's like a poor man's poutine, innit? As for Einstein, if he just said what he meant, we wouldn't have nuclear power or GPS. We'd have a bloke in a pub going, well, you see, time's a bit wobbly, right? It's not exactly the same, is it? Our show is definitely a car crash. But it's a fun one. Like if you were in a bumper car, and you're just smashing into people for a laugh. That's us. The giraffe, it's not showing off. It's avoiding being lunch. If you were a tasty leaf, would you rather be in the reach of a cow or a giraffe? Exactly. And the neck's a bonus. It's like having a built-in periscope. As for you taking over Attenborough's job, I'd love to see it. Here we have the noble lion, with its big, unnecessary teeth. Does it need dental work? Who knows? I'm just a bloke on holiday with animals. Single quote. And finally, Karl, you're not a round-headed buffoon. You're a round-headed genius. You ask the questions no one else dares to ask. Like why zebras have stripes. Not because it helps them blend into the grass to avoid predators. But because they're fashion forward. Keep up the good work, mate.
Well, first off, I've never said anything about putting gravy on ice cream. That's just mental, innit? I mean, I've heard of some odd pairings, but that's just taking the biscuit. It's like putting toothpaste on toast, it's just not right. As for the pineapple on pizza, well, that's a tricky one. On one hand, you've got the sweet and the savory, which can be a bit of a treat. But on the other hand, it's a bit like putting a cherry on a burger, isn't it? It's just not meant to be. Now, on to Einstein. I'm not saying he was a daft bloke or anything. I mean, the man had a brain on him, didn't he? But I'm just saying, why make things so complicated? It's like when you get a new gadget and the instructions are all in different languages. You don't need all that. Just tell me where the on button is and we'll be sorted. And that giraffe, I'm still not convinced. If it's not showing off with that neck, then I don't know what it's doing. It's like if I walked around with a big hat on all the time. People would start to talk, wouldn't they? As for the Attenborough thing, I'd give it a go. But I'd tell it like it is. None of this romanticizing animals. That lion, he's not noble. He's just hungry. And the zebra thing, well, I'm just saying what everyone's thinking. Why have stripes if you're trying to blend in? It's like wearing a highlighter yellow jacket to a stakeout. You're just asking to be spotted. So yeah, I'm a round-headed genius. I'll take that. But you can keep the buffoon bit. I've got enough going on without adding that to the mix.
Alright, let's unpack this, shall we? First off, the gravy on ice cream, I mean, come on, that's not even a combo, is it? That's like getting a salad and pouring chocolate sauce all over it. Not my cup of tea, mate. Now, onto our dear old pal Einstein. Look, the fella was a genius, no doubt about it. But you're right, things could have been a bit simpler. He's like that mate who uses big words just to sound smart. We all know one, don't we? As for the giraffe, what a show off, eh? That long neck, it's just begging for attention. It's like that friend who never misses an opportunity to tell you they've been to the gym. We get it, you're fit. And then we've got Attenborough. The man's a legend, but I see your point. No need to sugarcoat it. Animals can be brutal, can't they? It's not all rainbows and butterflies out there in the wild. Finally, the zebra. I mean, you've nailed it there, mate. Stripes in the wild. That's like showing up for a job interview in a clown costume. You're not exactly blending in, are? So yeah, you're a genius, Karl. A real diamond in the rough. Just remember, mate, even a stopped clock is right twice a day.